and welcome back to the Amazon EU Masters. We are one game into this best of 5 between Misfits, Premier and Vodafone Giants. And first game, very dominating game out of Misfits Premier. Nymaera, what do Giants need to do to turn this around?
Well, maybe do a little bit what I did. Got myself a cup of tea over the break, and your shout at the start there woke me up a little because Vodafone Giants need to wake up because this is not a dream. This one is a bit of a nightmare, and they got slammed in the early game. They had a brief look in around that mid lane where I thought maybe there was an angle. Maybe you can upset Sertuss, stop them from impacting the map. But it all too quickly was snuffed out by Shlatan's heads-up play, and that needs to change. They need to really find an option in the early game which doesn't fall apart as soon as they start it.
And I think we used to hit on it as well when me and you were having a chat actually during the break and while watching the analyst test, because Vodafone Giants were really lacking any engage. Now, an engageless team is very hard to run. You really need to know what you're doing. You're playing versus a team that know what they're doing, so even harder to actually pull it off. So, maybe look towards them that can actually set up and start fights, because you even said to me as well, that last fight was the perfect fight, but you're 12k gold down, so how do you win that? We'll see what's going to be changed up in the picks and bans. For the moment, the first 4 bans are actually completely identical to our last game. Same sides as well for the teams, so we'll see whether or not it's a similar champ select.
Yeah, because again, that lack of engage, very crucial point. It is like trying to sail a ship without actually having a set of sails. You just have a rudder and you hope that the current takes you in the direction that you need to. And, well, that certainly didn't happen in that regard. Exactly the same bans coming through again, which means that we're probably going to go see a first pick Lee Sin yet again.
Yep, there it is. All right, let's see what the answer's going to be. Maybe they opt back into that Braum. Yep, so they do. So exactly the same chance. I think we might have just replayed game 1, Bob, to be honest. We'll see. What was the next pick up for Misfits?
This would have been the Aphelios, and then the pick after that, I'd have to be reminded. I would imagine we're probably going to see it again, though, because Mrs. Premier, I don't see what you would pick at that. Oh, there was Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate, and then the Sylas came in right after, because they picked it up, and then the immediate response came through. So while they are laboring their thought process a little on the lock-in time, I don't see why they'd need to change anything, because if Vodafone Giants do once again lock themselves into seeing where the current takes them on these very still waters from the first game, what do you expect to go different?
Well, we'll see. They are thinking about it. They do know, obviously, oh yeah, Sylas is still up and available, and if Miniduke was unlocked, that could have been a hard one, but they decide, nope, we're going to opt back into that global. Miniduke, we'll see if he's going to go back towards that Sylas. I feel like that's probably a pretty decent pickup here. I don't think this first half was a problem. I think as far as the champs that goes, I like this. This is completely fine. It's this next stage. Where do you look to go? Because obviously, Misfits, they banned away the Ornn.
Yes.
Alistair this time is going to get taken away from Jactroll, so there's a bit of a change. Okay,
so that certainly helps, although, again, the fact that this happens is mind-boggling to my understanding of League of Legends in a lot of ways, because in that last game, it's something that we talked about in the break as well, so thinking, how the heck did Jactroll make Alistair look that useful while Miniduke was not an impact? Well, Jactroll's just really good at League of Legends. That's definitely one factor of it. But the fact that you have to ban an Alistair while you have the Sylas, that is levels above what you would normally expect to be doing. But this is what a best of 5 does afford you. It affords you that chance to assess what went wrong in that previous game. And as much as Vodafone Giants potentially didn't draft to an optimum team comp to fight from behind, as we said, there was that chance that a well-orchestrated level 1 could have come out to great rewards and that they could have started snowballing through and a lot of other things to that effect. Maybe they are trying to return to similar stories and just try and have a more orchestrated level 1.
I just want to note that we've had a few changes here. Obviously, the Tristana banned away, the Renekton and the Alistair banned away. So let's see what the next ban is going to be, what the next pickup is going to be. That Ornn has been left open. That is an option. Attila, going back to something we do see Attila play fairly regularly, something we know him for, the Sivir. Now, Misfits Premier, what are their options? Obviously, looking towards that support pool. They are playing into the Braum. You can still go for something like that Leona, but obviously the laning phase can be a bit more rough, but you do still have that long-range solar flare to set up. You could also lean in towards an enchant. We did talk briefly about that during the last game, although typically it's been pretty heavily focused on these tank and these support engages. Yes, like kind of tanky supports and engage supports. So I was going to lean towards that for Jactroll and picking up the Leona. Now, final rotation here, looking towards the top side, unless they want to flex that Lee Sin. But the Camille was banned away last game, and it has been left open now, so Agresivoo is going to get his hands onto that. what is going to be the answer? Have Vodafone Giants got something spicy in mind? Because I feel like the Antonio can't really go towards that Ornn, which we were seeing out of him, you know, as a potential like engaged champion. But again, the engage is a real concern for me right now.
So he has been a traditional Cho'Gath player in the past too, if you want to go towards something else besides that Ornn, but you need to have something which does give you that engage, so it is going to come in regardless. It's a difficult matchup, especially into the Twisted Fate 2, but you do have the ability to outplay dives underneath your turret, and hopefully then scale up to become teamfight relevant in a way that the Vodafone Giants just did not in Game 1.
You are making up for the lack of engage now. I think this is much better, like team fighting compared from Vodafone Giants. You know, to have ways to create zones where they can control. Miniduke can also look to steal away the Hextech ultimatums, kind of scatter the fight and maybe target someone like Woolite and kind of leave them isolated to get free fired onto. But you know, your carry is a Sivir. Sivir needs time. She needs money to be a relevant champion. Same technically for Woolite, but the difference is Misfits are very good at injecting that gold into Woolite. Not saying Attila, they're not good at that, but last game, it was definitely the Woolite show and not the Attila show.
No, it wasn't. And you look at the itemization even coming in from Attila, going towards the Phantom Dancer, it just didn't work when they were that far behind. Maybe something like the Lord Doms would have helped, but at that point, I mean, the amount of gold you have in pocket is always working against you. So it's going to have to be returning to the presidential duties, protect Mr. President, seeing what this bot lane carry with, again, such huge stats from that from the group stage to get them back and relevant.
Well, we're on to the Rift for game number 2 of this best of 5 Misfits Premiere. The LFL first seed, 1 up in this series. KC, the current standing champions of the Amazonian Masters, did go 3-0 in their quarters, so they want to match. They want to keep themselves in up to pace with their counterpart, as Vodafone Giants doing their ever so famous early game invade. Woolite spots it out with the human ward he is, and it's just gonna sit in this bush nice and safe as Vodafone Giants just place down some wards and some information. Woolite will have to step away, but nobody will be falling early on in this fight. We'll see if any kind of tempo advantage is going to get picked up here from either side, but for now, looks like they are just looking to steal away this camp, although Shlatan, Agresivoo, Woolite, everybody's been pulled over to this side of the Rift, although they know the wards are down. And we might have a little bit of an early scrap here. Antonio has actually reset, so this is a 5 versus 4. They've been spotted out on the ward, though. And that might be all she wrote. They don't really want to take this fight now that they know. And it looks like they're just going to be able to force Vodafone Giants out of the jungle, but Vodafone Giants not willing to give up this spot. They've got themselves a hill to stand on. Damn it, they're going to stand on it. Agresivoo is going to have to use that teleport to rejoin the lane potentially if a fight breaks out. Not going to happen. They're just going to walk up. Got the hook shot to get up there nice and quick. And this early action is mitigated by the side of Misfits Premier. We'll see kind of what this costs. Obviously, for now, 113 will be a little bit slower on his initial clear just because he gets to the camps a little slower. Shlatan already able to pick up the chicken camp for himself, while 113 just going to be finishing up his blue and his gromp. The lane assignment will start out, and Antonio was obviously first into lane, so Agresivoo has to pay respects towards that. And will have to be recognized that the experience deficit is going to be something that he needs to worry about. But keep our eyes on that one for now, as bot lane pushing in for the side of Vodafone Giants.
And seems like I've managed to deal with various technical difficulties. And let's see if Vodafone Giants can deal with their own early game worries they had from that first game. So once again, priority, as I believe you're alluding to, towards the Antonio in the early game. It's not quite in time to match up with the Scuttle sinking, and when that spawned. We have significantly less impact from the first clear coming around this time. Of course, we saw that 113 kind of took a bit of a diversion around about this point in time last time, just as there was a flash blown, fairly similar this time from the spot lane.
This is a pretty standard thing about playing into the Braum. You can jump in forwards, you can CC them, but on the way out, while your aftershock wears off, the concussive blows stack up, and then you end up losing out on that trade as 113 definitely slower to the punch because of that invade. Wasn't able to get anything from it. Is a little bit further behind Shlatan, who does look for him with a kick, and with Miniduke also being shoved in, Shlatan may just look for that double crab start again, as 113 has to be very careful. Spotted out by the ward, and Shlatan pretty much got the full run of it.
does for now, and we do see that neither the top laners are moving, and one of these junglers has a red buff. Red buff is so strong. He can walk up, he has the smite, he just takes it.
Oh, 1-1-3, that is not what you need now. Getting chunked out as well on the tail end. Won't be a double crab, but it will be a red buff denial as Woolite trying to free fire off with the Infernum. Look at the flash forward, Kasing going absolutely off, but it doesn't matter because it's first blood picked up for Jactroll, and Attila will force the flash out. Double kill for the Leona.
And it's hard won, but won nonetheless. Woolite stays alive because, of course, one of the key things about 2v2 is that you get into one of these elongated fights, you gotta turn onto the AD carry. They're the ones which matter in the longer parts of this DPS check, and Attila and Kasing just overestimate themselves, rather. I mean, I get that you do have the ability to lock down, but you miss the concussive blows. You don't have the immediate CC coming through. So Kasing feels like he has to flash forward, because if you don't get that proc down, you are going to get run down. There is no escape after that point, but they still choose to commit to that fight and lose it handily.
And Shlatan got double crab as well. So
even worse.
Even worse. 1-1-3 now, pairing up with Kasing. Shlatan jumps in. He's going to look to scrap this as he has got Jactroll actually missing out on that wind becoming lightning. Sertuss with a flash, the gold card to lock Kasing in place. He's now going to be held there forever. Tries to jump away, but Shlatan finds the kill. Their answer out on a 1-for-1, but the gold card just getting wound up. A Miniduke with a flash. Can flash over the wall to safety for Jactroll. Will look with a Zenith Blade.
No way!
Flashes into 1-1-3's face! And Jactroll's on a killing spree. It is a fed Leona.
This is the most fed and the most damage I've seen from a Leona since we had that Fervor of Battle stint way back in the day. Holy, Jactroll taking no prisoners at this point, wanting to make that mark. Gonna go see how all of this came about, because normally you think, hey, jumping in 1v2, that's normally not so good, but you do have the double buffs, and Kasing, importantly, just used up all of their fighting power in terms of summoners down in that 2v2. They have a discrepancy in that, and you kind of just have to leave this Braum to the wolves at that point. Vodafone Giants, once again, biting off more than they can chew. They just seem to have a really bad read on their own strength in these skirmishes. That's so
yeah, sad. I think, not much to say. They just completely rolled them in the fight. Like you said, not respecting the fact that Kasing had all summoners down. He's level 3 Braum, so sure, he has 3 spells, but that is all he's offering, plus the Guardian.
And now you have to look again and say, all right, Vodafone Giants, what did you change between game 1 and game 2? They are trying to be more proactive. I can appreciate that quite a lot, because that was one of the big things that we pointed out in game 1. But maybe not quite like this, because there needs to be a calculated factor to that aggression. And yes, you do get the 1 kill turned around. Miniduke does have the earlier XP advantage once more, has the double buffs this time. But remember,
look at that total gold.
Oh my god.
The most fed member in this game is Jactroll.
It's like all of the gold which the Antonio should have earned on Gangplank last game has somehow ended up on Jactroll this time. This is not something I'm used to casting. This is outside of my comfort zone. I need a responsible adult, Hiprain. This is very scary.
So it is actually probably a little scary for Misfits. No, the shutdown is on the person whose job is to jump in, but that person doesn't seem to care. Jactroll's like, nah, I'm tanky, I've got tabbies, mate. So he's just hex flashing out of bushes. But there is a 300 gold shutdown on him. So a kill onto Jactroll, if funneled into the likes of Attila, could be pretty big. Now,
everyone's going top.
Destiny's getting used, Antonio's getting jumped onto. They're looking for the gold card, but here comes the call of the Forge God. Vodafone Giants looking for the turnaround. They're looking for the knock-off onto Sertuss, as Miniduke will find himself kill. Bit too aggressive there from Misfits Premier, especially with this large wave pushing in, but Agresivoo needs to catch.
Score 1 for reaction replay. Shlatan trying to turn it around, though.
Okie dokie, don't worry about me. They're just going to get the kill, then go get the wave.
Sweet, okay. Extended 1-for-1. I was just about to praise Vodafone Giants for good response at the start of it, and you are going to get the half a wave pushed in mid. It turns that into an even play, though, all things said and done. However, bonus from this, of course, that Miniduke did steal the ult from Twisted Fate a fair while ago. At this point, they are closer towards their ultimate cooldown being off for the next stolen one, whereas Sertuss does have to wait until the full duration of Destiny Gate comes off of cooldown. Herald has spawned now. You have to watch out for those map rotations. Both supports making their way up to that point. No ultimates hit from either support, even with the hilarious amount of gold hit by Jactroll.
See the Rift Elder spawned up, and keep our eyes on that, because remember, Misfits have been typically fairly proactive on those objectives. We talked about that at the beginning of last game, although slow dragons from Misfits, and again, I'm going to argue slow dragons, especially when you got a very fed support, and they're actually just leaving Woolite to go farm on his lonesome, while Vodafone Giants go, all right, we'll take the Herald, and I don't think we're going to see any contest here from Misfits Premier. Don't think they've got too much interest in it, so for the first time in a long time, Misfits Premier are actually going to be losing out on one of these objectives, but they are gaining something. That's the big thing to note. 2 plates injected into Woolite. It's already a lot of solo gold on to one of your carries.
Yeah, because when you do put down that help, most of the time you're realistically expecting 2 plates, and you've already traded that back. This has always been one of the endearing conversations about the Herald, in terms of like, how much value can you get out of it? If you do lose a wave and 2 plates, monetarily, a lot of the time you can lose out on that objective, unless you have a very big power play. But we can revisit that point we had for the start of the series, going to game 1. What do Misfits Premier look when they are forced to trade? It is still not really a good analog for this game, because they are still a large amount of gold up. But not everything has gone their way this time in the early game. They do have to face down against that 2-kill Sylas. Miniduke getting themselves involved a lot more than they did do the last time. Because remember, of course, Miniduke was manhandled a little bit in mid lane once Shlatan and Jactroll started getting rolling. They haven't quite managed to do that this time, though, have Misfits Premier. So a bit more of an even game state, even if it is still LFL favored.
Yeah, we did see it was 3 plates in the end as well for the side of Woolite, so even more gold injected into him, building towards either the Gale Force or the Kraken Slayer in this game. Not going towards the build we saw last game, which was that Immortal Shield Bow, and that's, for me, Woolite going... Used Embolden as a term quite a lot in the last game. I feel like he's already emboldened, and yeah, you can see that Jactroll not really wanting to play around. Woolite just quite happy to solo soak experience and farm, but Kasing looking for Shlatan. There's the solar flare. There's that engage we were talking about. And just like that, they find a shutdown onto Shlatan.
So one difference between game 1 and game 2 in terms of the draft is maybe no Alistair ult to steal, but a stolen solar flare certainly does sound good in terms of engage options. Not just the Ornn, which has solved that little hole in the hull from the ship, which is Vodafone Giants, and they get themselves a pick and go straight towards that dragon. Something, once again, being traded back in this early game, but it's at the cost of top lane.
Exactly. This is what you want to see. This is what Vodafone Giants weren't doing. Sure, you're losing an objective, but a play happens on the other side. Something goes down. Some trade of gold happens. As Jactroll is waiting. I was cautiously optimistic about a solar flare, if I'm going to be honest, but it didn't hold down. Jactroll knows a little better than to try and outsmite a smite with a solar flare, even if he is fed.
One of the big changes from the jungle smite changes, rather, I guess, in the season is that actually very early into the game you have such high objective secure from the junglers. Of course, it's not just based on level. Your smite 5 times goes from 400 damage right up to way towards 900. Very hard to add damage at this point in the game. So 113 does secure that one, and we are left with still get that advantage going up towards Misfits Premier, and that kind of goes towards their namesake. But the question is now, is this now within reasonable bounds to teamfight? Because you do have the Sivir, who will be having an easier time against the front line of Misfits Premier than the last one, you have to expect.
Yeah. Having
a front line that's actually going to survive for a bit longer, and hopefully the ability to have a bit of space bought for them.
Yeah, Woolite with a pretty good gun combination, able to get a nice little trade-off onto Attila. Jactroll has lost a spot at the top, unfortunately, and has now dropped down pretty low, but 113 below Jactroll still. 400 gold down on the enemy support. While Shlatan quite happy, farming up, getting kills, playing for the team.
So the thing with this amount of gold on a support like Leona, though, is that actually at this point, the best experience you would have had against this kind of gold on a tank support is literally in A-rounds. I know that the Shy back in their Worlds run back in 2018 said that they understood how to play against some wacky stuff because they played against it in A-rounds, you know, just played a couple every so often. Genuinely, it's not a bad way to try and at least get that muscle memory into thinking, oh, holy heck, that's a lot of damage that this support which can soak up compared to what we normally suppose. We do have defensive boost built up on Kasing, and we do have a Herald put down mid lane. So let's see if that tankiness is put to the test between these two supports right now.
They might actually be able to take it out the Ive in time. Let's see if they can get it. No, they can't. The plates are traded off, and Woolite has been left isolated away from the team, while the Antonio gold-carded can't find himself anything else. And Woolite was just completely alone. He burned both summoner spells. Vodafone Giants playing way more aggressive and not reactive, crucially. That is the key takeaway. That is the key character growth of this team right now.
And the big thing for me is where all that gold is nucleated, it's Miniduke. It's on the Sylas, on the champion with the most mechanical agency in this game. See that Vodafone Giants very quickly realizing that they can split the team of Mrs. Premier and just get right on top of this AD carry. As you were saying, doesn't have something like the Severum, can't outplay that fight at that point, and steals himself a Destiny Gate to get right back on top of that mid wave.
Yeah, Gale Force picked up for Attila. Kraken Slayer now picked up for Woolite. So it is... Woolite's expecting these fights to be front to back, and if he's isolated like that again, he will get blown up. Like I said, Miniduke, he's the one who's getting all the gold for the side of Vodafone Giants, and that's a scary person picking the kills up. But the Antonio, speaking of scared, this is the third time this has happened to him. Gold card in, Hextech ultimatums, and lockdown. Shlatan finds the kill. And the tower will survive for a little bit longer. There are no plates anymore. Yeah. They do just want to pick up this tower as quick as possible. The trade is going to be the mid lane tier 1. Opening up the map somewhat here for Misfits Premier. They're going to teleport the Twisted Fate back to mid lane so they don't lose the tier 2.
And it might have been more fitting on the Gangplank last game, but I mean, Misfits Premier will certainly remember this as the day they definitely killed Captain Antonio Sparrow, as he's just been left alone to just try and suck it up and say, cool, I'll be there at team fights, guys. I'll really enjoy it when it gets to that point, because he has no individual agency at this point. You can outplay under some dives at that point. Of course, Agresivoo resets the aggro. You're not going to get enough tower shots onto a single target, even with your CC combo, at this kind of level in the game. Level 11 means you have a lot of base HP, a lot of base stats. And we might see some of those come to bear around this bot lane turret. We see a large amount of Vodafone Giants members around this bot turret, but they don't want to tangle with Woolite just yet under tower.
I think Infernum and the Graviton makes it pretty hard when you're playing into a Leona tower dive, even with the numbers advantage. It's a lot of CC. Not going to risk it. I'm going to step away. We'll see whether or not they're able to defend this tier 2 for too much longer, though, because Attila is starting to get to that point where waves do just liquefy to the Sivir. Now, Misfits do finally get their first objective of the game as they pick up a Rift Herald. We'll see where they decide to go use it. Whether or not they just want to jet this gold into the likes of Agresivoo and let him take a tier 2, or if they want to try and crack open the mid lane. Remember, you're playing into a Sivir this time, so honestly, opening up mid lane now when you've got the Herald is going to be way easier than a little bit later once there's 2 free items on that Sivir, because the waves will just get cut through.
Yeah, and it's good of you to mention that actually about Sivir, because of course that one's the very obvious one, but then you look at actually the Antonio being able to sit on the side lane, and if Vodafone Giants don't want to fight in the next minute, so they can just use that Call the Forge God to clear out the wave. There's no real emphasis for them to you know, have the poor Ornn die yet another time. 1-1-3 might not have a choice though.
They're jumping in. Miniduke comes in onto the flank instantly. Woolite loses his life, and just like that, Vodafone Giants find themselves the kills. 3 members crumble. And it's over before it even started. Dragon number 2 to Vodafone Giants.
Sweet. I mean, for once, it's not actually the person getting picked off, which gets themselves towards that death chamber at first. Vodafone Giants turn the play around. And suddenly we're looking at this team which has, again, adapted from this first game. All well and good of Shlatan going towards that pick, but this time you have Kasing, who is relevant in this game, gets up that Unbreakable. Sertuss doesn't get a second gold card down. You don't have a Camille splitting up that fight and making things even more disruptive. Heck, if both top laners there, that probably goes even worse for Mrs. Premier. This time it's the French team who are starting to over-calculate things, starting to over-assess their own potential, and they're getting rightfully slapped for it.
This is what we wanted to see. Proactive play, trying to beat Misfits out on the objectives and their kind of early game aggression, and they've executed on it. Woolite kind of left isolated while Jactroll roamed around the map, and Woolite obviously has got a couple of assists to his name, but other than that, isn't all that strong right now. You see him trying to train to Kasing, but the Unbreakable makes his life pretty hard. And Woolite definitely in a weaker spot right now.
And I do want to talk about Woolite just a little bit more, because you did hit on that Kraken Slayer before. I think that Gale Force is probably the better build this game, partly because you do actually have that very annoying backline access from the Ornn ultimate. You don't have the Braum to block it out yourself. That Gale Force is still offensive in terms of the aggressive dash forward you can have to get into range. There's a reason he's not going towards that Hurricane just yet. Actually, I mean, we'll hold our thoughts on that one, but it shouldn't be the Hurricane coming in next, because you're not likely going to be in range to use it all of that time. I just felt that Gale Force active would have given the extra degree of safety to outplay an Ornn ultimate, or even someone like Miniduke dashing into his face, which has been a problem in the last couple of fights.
Yeah, Miniduke is able to steal away Jactroll's ultimates pretty much every time around, and definitely making Woolite's life really, really hard as tier 1 towers, top and bot, are traded out between the two teams. We're 18 minutes in, and the gold pretty close between both of these teams. I would actually like to have a quick look at the individual gold and just see, you know, where this gold is kind of spread out, because there's a 1,700 gold lead to Agresivoo over the Antonio. But look at Miniduke right now, 9,000 gold. It's huge.
It is. And what is interesting for me is actually that they've gone towards the Zhonya second. They haven't felt the need to go towards something like the Cosmic Drive, which gives you more Ws. That's more about dueling, right? Because you're getting more healing, you have a crazy amount of damage, the more ability haste that you have. Having something like a Zhonya's and something which my main champion, of course, Ari, likes to do occasionally as well. It just gives you the ability to be that almost conditional engage, conditional frontline buying that space, but just being able to sit there, go in super aggressively, because actually most of the people you can catch out in Misfits Premier, if your Zhonya's in front of their face after landing your first round of CC, your team probably finishes up that fight for you, particularly when they have that Sivir ultimate, moving them even more quickly into position.
Just taking note of the items, actually, Woolite decided to go for the arm pen. So it's building, obviously, around the fact that these fights are most likely going to be front to back. Which I'm a big fan of, actually. I'm a very big fan of that one.
Wow, play-by-play likes 5v5. It's incredible.
Well, it's more the fact that it's smart itemization into what Vodafone Giants do. But yes, I do like 5v5s. And Woolite has to burn the flash. That's not going to be up for the Dragon. And not up for a Baron, which is technically on the Rift, although I don't feel like either team's really feeling like doing a Baron right now.
I think unless you get that, I mean, looking at what happened literally this time last game, we saw that 4th and none into a Baron, something like that. You need to see a clean fight, and it's been hard to find for either team on that scale thus far. Mrs. Premier, though we have been talking in the favor of Vodafone Giants in terms of, wow, they've managed to find some proactive plays, managed to find some picks, and keep themselves with options to go aggressively in a way that they did not manage in that previous game, are still behind in gold. They're still 1,000 gold down. Mrs. Premier do have those fighting options which make them very, very scary. You have the Fire Cannon gold card. You have, as you said, the armor penetration is starting to come in from Woolite, and Aphelios is a champion that can do absolutely anything if given the right weapon combination with the right amount of time to spit out damage. So Giants need to start playing around the style which they have done throughout this game so far, and make sure that they don't give a fair fight. Make sure that they do use Miniduke's unparalleled utility from stealing all of this plethora of ultimates to make sure that they have the unfair fight this time.
So I want to actually talk a little bit about moving forward in this game, because to me, it's like, do Vodafone Giants need to keep the pressure up, or are they okay to scale? Because, I mean, you still got that Sivir. Obviously, you are playing into an Aphelios, who also scales very well, but, you know, you got the front line, you got the ornaments getting handed out. So is there, like, a big emphasis on Vodafone Giants accelerating this game, or are they pretty cool to chill? They got themselves, you know, they're down in gold, but it feels like they're up in gold. It's like a pseudo gold lead. It's really bizarre.
Well, this is why, you know, many league experts over the last season or two have started rightfully calling out, actually, gold advantage is not what you really think it is. Yes, it helps. It is a good indicator, and when you are 12,000 gold in the lead like last game, you do pay attention to it. When it's at this level, though, it's much more about the execution, much more about finding the right entrance to a fight. I think that Vodafone Giants are not necessarily dominant in their scaling factor, because again, you do have a Camille on the side lane. You do have the Aphelios, who, similarly to that Sivir, can melt waves in a similar degree, right? You have an Inferno Morb or whatever, really, at that point. You have the right kind of wave clear to control the map to your own regard. Doesn't mean you have to blindly kind of bum rush into the enemy team and say, yes, I have a Twisted Fate ultimate stolen. That sounds like a good time to go. Yes, it's a very important point of power. Just need to be very respectful with the way that you're playing aggressively. That's what I'm looking for, really. Not just giving a free ride, but making sure that you're not overplaying your hand.
All right, well, Cloud Soul, 4 minutes away. Not the most impactful, but, you know, Attila he gets jumped onto. He fails the flash! And Shlatan finds the kill. That is a pick they needed.
Oh, Jactroll finds the Zenith Blade onto the old teammate. Ain't that one good for all those narratives? Miniduke does pick up the Leona Solar Flare. It's one pick. It's a damn important one. But Miniduke is where the gold is, and he has a chance to shine in the Baron pit. Let's see how it works out.
Keep our eyes on the Antonio. Got that big call of the forward squad. As long as he doesn't get CC'd, he can set up. Agresivoo jumps into Miniduke. They're looking for the fight, but Miniduke's out. There's the call of the forward squad. 2 members knocked up by the Ornn. And the fight is on. What an engage by the Antonio. Looking up 4 for Vodafone Giants. They have no damage. They have no backup. The Destiny's coming in. Kasing's gold carded. He's wild carded. And Miniduke can't offer anything. It looked flashy, but it wasn't enough. Misfits find the team fight.
Oh, even though the stolen solar flare lands onto the Aphelios, there's no follow-up. Not enough anyway. Miniduke can't dive that far into the backline. What it does do, with the cost of many fallen comrades, is that they do stop the Baron. Vodafone Giants do stop the very worst case scenario, but this is still a lost fight. It's not going to be a reprisal of that Baron fight, or at least the one who's led into the Baron from the last time. Going back into this replay, again, I want you to watch how safe Woolite is actually, regardless of the amount of skill shots which hits them. Okay, cool. Solar Flare. Okay, cool. Antonio has managed to get the knock-up too, but he has a Severum. He has, of course, the Crescendum too. He can go towards the aggressive or defensive parts of that weapon combo, and you don't ever see the Giants members after that point get into melee range and finish off that kill, which would have, again, won themselves that fight. We're back to the Baron though, Jake.
We're back to action. That's what I like to see, baby. Antonio, no ultimate available to him, so the turret goes down. Baron is dissuaded. Vodafone Giants able to hold on for now. We've got 2 minutes until that dragon comes up. They can get a little bit quicker, but look at the mid lane at the moment. Attila had the inside track in. He's going to be able to shove through this wave very, very quickly. Not going to be able to take the tower, though. Sorry, don't worry. He's able to take the tower, though. Sertuss wasn't able to clear through the wave.
Below that, we'll go quickly wreck on that one, but it feels like we have a real game this time. This is not just a one-sided shutout. This is not, okay, we failed before 5 minutes. Let's go next, because everything spiraled out of control from that one. Miniduke holding things in the balance for the side of Vodafone Giants, but Mrs. Braum certainly not ready to give up this game just yet. They still have themselves dominant gold lead, even if that, again, as we said, it's not always indicative of points of power. Cloud Soul.
I think it's starting to ramp up, though. I think that's where we're at. Like,
if you give me a 3,000 gold lead at like 15 minutes, I agree. 25 minutes, you want a little bit more. You want a little bit more.
Well, keep in mind, also, a fair amount of like original gold lead in the game was on Jactroll. So maybe not in the most useful place as well. That's kind of something else you have to kind of consider. But Agresivoo now going to be quite happy off the side lane. A 2-level lead over the Antonio. Got that Hydra, got that Sundra finished up. And it's just going to back off. Doesn't really have the full information to work with. Is Shlatan maybe thinking about starting this one up? The Destiny's been used and Vodafone Giants have been spotted out. They're actually teleporting in. Sivir's going down because he was on top of that control ward, so Vodafone Giants would have seen the teleport on their minimaps. The Jactroll,
they've seen it now. Antonio is here now, though.
It's half HP, though. They need to start and force now, or this is going to get real scary. Shlatan not willing to give it up. Call of the forward squad from the Antonio. He's actually going to hand out an ornament before the fight starts. Attila gets his Typhoon. Can that make the difference? Solar Flare completely fumbled. There's the call of the forward squad. Into the Graviton. Can't get the redirect off. And instantly, 1-1-3 goes down. Baron is doing a bit of DPS work as Attila's unable to step forward. Trying to get the ricochets off. Miniduke goes golden. Agresivoo jumps in. Look at the health bars on Misfits. They don't matter because it's Vodafone Giants who are losing people left, right, and center. Miniduke with a one-shot into the gold card. No Kingslayer. Agresivoo gets a triple kill. And Misfits Premier just walk away with a team fight.
They do, and it was a bit awkward on the timing. As soon as the teleport came in, I thought, okay, cool, they're leveraging the difference in the globals available between top laners. But they didn't quite land the hammer blow at that point. They had to wait a little. They had to bait in the fight. They do get the fight that they want. They find the members that they need to. We're going to go see exactly how they managed it from this replay. As you said, Antonio, stop it off to give a little bit of a pitch check over towards Attila, give himself that extra item upgrade. But as much as Attila would love to be fighting, he doesn't really get the best auto attack uptime because Agresivoo has themselves a stopwatch. And if he steps a little too far forward, it's all well and good that you have the Sivir W ricocheting between members, but with the Infernum alive for most of that fight from Woolite, you step forward into Woolite hitting the front line, actually you are going to die yourself as that Sivir. The AD carry uptime was so important in that fight.
And there we go, Cloud Soul picked up for Vodafone Giants, but they are dealing with a Baron Siege from Misfits. Misfits we asked the question, what is it like when they get challenged, when they're not picking up all of the objectives on the map? How can they play? Turns out, pretty bloody well. They're able to open up a game which was starting to slip away and out of their hands. But it looked like in the end, it turns out they never gave up any pressure, and Shlatan just being a real nuisance and stopping the resets. The rest of the team rotating around the map and looking to pick up even more objectives on this map.
And Hiprain, I think the gold lead means something now. I'm gonna throw that one out there. We're gonna give up that one fight. This one is very much sliding out of control, much like the last Baron did. That is a root.
Oh, a nice little actual re-engage there from Agresivoo. He's got the Hextech ultimate and do some dodge work here. Guardian gets popped and he made us look for Miniduke, but instantly caught out by all of the CC, trying to find himself the turnaround shutdown for Miniduke though. Vodafone Giants do get something, but at what cost? A second inhibitor will crumble to Misfits Premier.
Hey, so 1,000 gold shut down and a teleport to make things worse.
Gold card's gonna land. He can't move again. The call of the Forge God is irrelevant as everybody is CC'd. They find the knockdown and actually Misfits Premier are starting to lose some members. Woolite's down. It's a double kill for Kasing. They are chasing in. The gold card connects. Kasing maybe looking for the triple kill, maybe a quadra kill on the Braum, baby. They're gonna chase on the Sertuss, giving the kill over to 113. Vodafone Giants may have lost a lot of their base, but they do fire back.
And it looks like we're not at miracle territory just yet. There is a little more gas to go in this one vehicle. The Giants are rolling this one just away from the precipice of the cliff edge. I thought that after that Baron came down, that would have been it. But they managed to go force onto the singular member of Misfits Premier. It's all well and good having yourself that gold lead. Having a 3v1 or a 4v1, excuse me, on the one side of the map is not enough to stand and fight. And then they have to stand and deliver in a 5v4 in its truest sense. And that's even with a godlike solar flare. A very good CC chain to stop this being even worse than what it was. But the battle lines are reversed. There is no way for Woolite to stand and fight. And, you know, we talked about the AD carry uptime. Woolite was not a factor in that fight.
And it's even though Antonio didn't get the call of the Forge God off, he still ended by surviving that fight. And, you know, he's not having the greatest time, unfortunately. Every time he tries to use his ultimate, he does get cancelled out, but he got the chains finished up. So, remember, you got the brittle, which extends CC duration, and then you got the chains as well. I believe the chains are probably on Woolite. Woolite could potentially be locked down for a very long period of time.
That's getting up to like Morgana binding levels. You can go get yourself a drink during that break at that point. Go find yourself a box of popcorn, as you all well should have grabbed at this point if it wasn't obvious enough already. Vodafone Giants not going quietly into the night. They do have something left to fight for. And again, need we remind you of all of those narratives. This is the very last Superliga team, the last hope for the Spanish representatives in this tournament. They came in with 3. This is the last shot in the chamber, and they need to make it hit the mark.
And keep in mind, the way that the semi-finals have worked out is Kasing and Misfits actually avoid each other until the finals. So if they both make it to the finals, we actually could be seeing an LFL Grand Final rematch where Misfits Premier, they beat KC. They beat one of the favorites in this tournament already back domestically. They are the first seed from the LFL. So they're going to be wanting that rematch, and they're going to want to well and truly put the blue wall down by taking their home crown and the Amazon EU Masters crown.
And I myself, if we're going to go talk about, you know, these singular region finals potentially, I was a big fan of SKT back in the day, still am, of course. Started back in Season 4, and we did see, of course, even at the highest levels of competition, we have seen singular regions have those periods of absolute dominance, and it feels like in EU Masters, the LFL have started to tap into that kind of storyline yet again. They have had so many important performances at this level, and I'm looking across both of those teams, which we're representing in this tournament, Misfits Premier, coming core, and they just have this ability to scrap, think with their heads-up play, that's the word which I keep using for it, the term I keep using for it, and just adapt on the flight so much better than so many other teams. So actually credit to Vodafone Giants in this game to not let the game completely run away without them. This is not a runaway train, this is one which they do have some control over still.
The interesting thing as well about kind of like the singular region narratives is, you know, when we actually expand and look at the other regions, I feel like there's only ever one region that's going to be a big contest for the LFL, and that is the Superliga. I think, especially if you've seen all the announcements on Twitter as of late, Superliga next year is going to be stacked.
Yes.
And I think next year, it's going to be the LFL versus the Superliga as our two big regions, our dominant forces. Obviously, we're very early on. There's a long way to go. There's a lot of things in the air, but man, there's some moves being made. And getting back into this game, Attila, level 17, got the Infinity Edge and now building towards that 4th item.
Okay, here we go.
The ulti, they're jumping in. The Call of the Forge Squad only hits up one, but Jactroll's buying time. Caught out, knocked up, Antonio flashes out, and just like that, Vodafone Giants are chasing him. Agresivoo locked down as the GA is popped, and everyone is just so quick, jumping forward, jumping out.
Sertuss is killing the wave.
Are in for so much help, but look at Sertuss. Yeah, he's actually gone into the back door. He's trying to push up forwards. He's catching the wave to make sure they don't lose the base here, while the rest of the team are getting the bases cancelled. Shlatan is doing his job here. He's able to stop 2 members. He's able to hold 3 members. There's supers inside the base. There's no backdoor happening today, but the Elder Drake is being taken. Teleport's being forced out, and Shlatan gives his life for the cause. Elder Dragon will get picked up though for Vodafone Giants.
It will do, and it comes off of the 5v5. You said you wanted to see it, you love to see it, I do too, and so should the Superliga fans in this game. That gold lead does not seem to be that important right now. You look at that last fight, Antonio brought so much time in a way that he couldn't in that last game, in a way that he didn't have his tanky champion pool to allow him to do so. And off of the back of one big fight into the late game, Vodafone Giants get themselves a leg up on the competition.
There we are. Baron Nashor going to get secured as well for the side of Vodafone Giants. Elder, Nashor, it's all coming up for Spain right now as we have a look at the fight once again.
And it seems like this is just a hex slash too far from Jactroll. Doesn't have a way out after he's found himself on the awkward part of that geography. And you can see how much impact Antonio has in this game now after all of the hard work they had on the weak side of the map. He gets out that called the Forge God, and Woolite, as much as they were dominant towards the mid game, they've started to find it really difficult to find space, which is again why I bring back that question towards that Gale Force. Having that extra amount of ability to get off 1 extra auto, 2 extra autos. At this point in the game with 4 items, that can be the difference. Now, MSFP have to face off against this Elder Dragon buff, and hopefully see themselves out to the next iteration of these objective spawns.
And the teleport's going to have to get used by Agresivoo. They see him leaving. They're quite happy with that trade. 2 open inhibitors, 1 good fight, 1 good potential destiny by Sertuss. Catching people sleeping is an option to, you know, open up the base and maybe slow the speed down somewhat, because it's now Misfits put the brakes on. Vodafone Giants, it's on them to make sure this is where they start to press down on that accelerator and get this game going, because they are in control. Gold lead irrelevant. They've got Soul, they've got Elder, they've got Baron. They have all of the tools to close this game out, and they are looking to do so. Attila, level 18, almost full build right now. 409 CS. It's the Attila show, and it's the Miniduke show. As into the base, Vodafone Giants go. Elder still working out the solar flare. Woolite is popped. Run over by the cow. The Shlatan gets the kickoff of the Miniduke. Does knock off Attila momentarily, but Vodafone Giants are just going to look to chase this one out, close this one out. Double kill picked up for the Antonio, and it's one apiece.
Lo and behold, we are not getting a 3-game series. Goes even, goes 1-for-1, and after the early game again, after it kind of gets towards that scary mid-game coming out of Mrs. Premier, I didn't think we would be reaching this point, but maybe I should have been a little bit more neutral towards my predictions as we have ourselves an even series.
I am very happy to see that Vodafone Giants had it, because I feel like they were one of the teams that were in a matchup where they definitely could win. It was a hard win. I think Misfits are definitely a hard team, but I do feel like this is not a Vodafone Giants like fighting. You know, it's not like it's completely Misfits Premier favored, right? I think Vodafone Giants are an amazing team, and I think they have the opportunity to take this series. And if they can play like that, we're in for an absolute corker of a series. We're going to throw to a break anyway while we get ready for our Analyst to break game number 2 down. So we'll see you in a moment.
The dream is still alive for the Superliga as Vodafone Giants managed to bounce back in the knockout phase here at the Amazon European Masters. That looked very, very good, and I'm happy that we saw some change-ups on the sides from Vodafone Giants.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big one for me. Like, looking at Vodafone Giants, I was like, we called for it at the end of game one. I want to see a mix-up. I want to see them playing elsewhere in the map. I want to see them moving away from Attila. And especially after that initial play in the bot side where Attila goes down, you get to see the support go down as well. I want to see movement coming out from Kasing. That's exactly what we got towards Miniduke in the mid lane.
Yeah, and honestly, when I saw that 2v2 going down and then Misfits Premier winning on both kills right there, I was like, ouch, that's technically your lane. That needs to be snowballing. And now it's even falling behind. What have you got to do?
I was kind of hoping on an AP Leona, maybe something like a Triforce. But looking at the team comps we've seen from both these teams, they look kind of similar to what we saw in game one. And I was kind of scared of it that, here we go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that I saw coming through from Misfits Premier was that, hey, look, they were kind of caught off guard by this pressure coming through from Kasing in the mid lane. They continuously tried to, like, offset that pressure by playing cross-map. So when we got that initial Herald play coming through from Vodafone Giants, well, we got Woolite pushing in on that bottom side, getting 3 turret plates for himself. We then had the Dragon fight that came across there to move top to get a kill on towards the Antonio. They were constantly trying to make these plays, but the problem was Miniduke was consistently finding the moments to capitalize on the mistakes, get these big kills. It meant that even though Woolite was pretty far ahead in terms of himself against Attila, Miniduke just slaughtered him every team fight.
I also feel like on the side of Vodafone Giants, they got a lot of comfort as well, because like Miniduke on the Sylas, Attila onto the Sivir, and I think one of the most important ones is the Antonio on Ornn, which was banned in game one. And this guy, we've talked about how strong he is on the tanks. Yes, he can fall behind 2, 3, 4K, 5K, but when he got these huge ultimates and his target was Woolite, he never missed.
Yeah, and that was the one for me, was like, this was actually getting to see the team fights from Vodafone Giants. This is what we expected their strengths to be. And although we got this kind of opportunity to play the 1-3-1 for Misfits Premier, they just couldn't set it up properly. They'd already lost too much gold. They'd already lost their tier 1s. It becomes really difficult to execute well on the map with this style of composition when you've already been pushed in so heavily. You have no vision control on the map. And that meant that when we got several of these early dragons going across towards Vodafone Giants, they're like, great lads, Elder Dragon's up, Baron's up. Where do you want to fight? We're ready.
Now I do wonder what the call was, because you see that early 2v2 where Vodafone Giants bot lane falls, but then all of a sudden they call for the mid lane, and I think that is the thing that is worth mentioning. As we see here, Jactroll trying to go for the carry. I think he had the most gold at this point after this double kill.
Yeah, it doesn't remind me, if anyone doesn't know, Misfits versus SKT. Anyone further Leona for Ignar? No? Basically getting the same idea here, right? The double kill coming through in the bot lane for the Leona. He popped off, but this is the team fights that we're talking about.
The Antonio actually with the flank right there, together with the Sylas, I think was huge. They're catching Woolite off guard, and he's in the middle of everyone. You've got the Sylas on one side, you've got the Xin Zhao, Braum, Sivir on the other. It's sort of like, where do you want to go, mate? Pick your poison.
And especially the picking off that Miniduke did a lot with the Sylas, and I think I've seen this before in another series, Trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dayer popped off, you know, he picked Sylas blind twice in the Fnatic Rising series, and once he got that little bit of attention, when he got that 1, 2, 3 kills rolling, he absolutely took control of the entire map. And I feel like that was the reason that you mentioned, Dagda, that the 1-3-1 couldn't work later on, because yes, the Camille was 2k up on the Ornn, but then the Twisted Fate could no longer lane against a Sylas with 4 or 5 items.
Yeah, and that's why it became so much of an issue trying to get this Twisted Fate in position, trying to see if you can make plays off it. And that's why I like what Misfits Premier tried to do, where they're like, okay, we'll go for quick resets, see if we can pick off Attila, which we saw in that one moment. And that's kind of where you see this big gold spike coming through for Misfits Premier just before that 30-minute mark. But unfortunately for them, that's when the team fights came along. That's when Miniduke came along.
And I have a feeling that this game was extremely, extremely close, but especially when the Elder spawned and Misfits have lost 2 members and Shlatan is chasing everyone trying to stop their backs. Sertuss had that little bit of time while Elder is going down to push down the last 2 remaining Nexus towers. And I know we're talking a lot about what ifs, but I feel like a Twisted Fate with Sheen on him has more than enough power to take down to Nexus towers really quickly, or at least force some teleports back, or maybe stop the Elder from going down. We'll never know. But this is why this is so exciting, because at least we get a really exciting close game. I don't think anyone expected the Giants comeback, but here we are.
I mean, looking at the goal graph as well, 9k lead, that is pretty much significant. Because if you look at the stats from Misfits Premier, every time they have a lead, most of the times they will close out their game.
It's not most. They have
of the time.
100% win rate when they're ahead at 50.
I mean, so this is interesting because I talked to the coach for Misfits Premier, Hiva, and he said, I think we can take this series easily, but if we make it hard, we're going to make it hard ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's what we got to see a little bit of as well, and it's kind of what propped up Miniduke in this series, because when you look at these early skirmishes that were coming through, right, they didn't end up spotting Kasing on that roam from the bot side, catch out all the players in the mid lane. You then look at these like early skirmishes that were happening in that bot side jungle as well. Miniduke was in perfect position time and time again to go for these plays, as you can see on your screen, like getting the big solo flares. This was the play that we were talking about with Kasing roaming up. We look at these plays here, they're catching Woolite out of position. Miniduke had like eyes on Woolite every single occasion and was getting these great flanks to pick off that crucial AD card.
And I feel like this is what we were looking at when we look at Giants, right? Are they one-dimensional? Can they only play through Attila? Can they only look to roam through Attila? And the answer here is no. They lose a very crucial 2v2 down the bot lane, and Kasing is like, screw it. I'm going through the mid, I'm going towards the Sylas, because if he is fed, if Miniduke is fed, he can definitely control the pace of the game. And oh boy, did he do that. They managed to bring back a 9k goal deficit.
And I think it's one of the big things that's been missing from Vodafone Giants, the mid-jungle support. It's what we've been talking about so extensively. I say people are going to hate me for mentioning it again, but it's exactly what made the difference here, right? We got to see 113 working with Kasing, pushing through Miniduke in the mid lane, and now you're kind of scared as Misfits Premier. This was supposed to be your style. This is supposed to be where you shone, and they just whacked you across the face with it. You've got to now go back to the drawing board and go, okay, lads, we didn't expect this to happen. What do we fix now?
I mean, and that's what series are all about, especially best of fives. Who adapts the best? Who adapts the best? Now going into game 3, we need to see something being changed up on the side of Misfits Premier. What do you think that is? Should we take out the Ornn if you're a Misfit?
I think this could be one way to go, because I felt like the Antonio is always in. So you can beat this guy down to the ground. You can dig him a hole and put him in there. He will come back later on in the team fights and slap you back in the face. And this is what Vodafone Giants really rely on. This really good team fighting style that they have and they're sporting. From the side of Misfits for me, I really like the draft. I think running it back is not going to be a problem. You just have to use that Camille a little bit more, getting her around the dragons. So instead of trying to go only for the 1-3-1, make sure you're delaying that Elder, that soul point, because I feel like this is what beat them at the end.
Yeah, and I agree with Trouble. I think the actual draft itself was not the issue. I think the biggest problem for me when I looked at Misfits Premier is where they were taking those early skirmishes, right? You can see consistently that we have Woolite, who had a ton of gold. They just went out on that bot lane exchange. Instead of having him to play around, they left him on his own. Miniduke kills him once. They try to take another fight. Miniduke comes over the Dragon Pit. They kill him again. Like, every single time, Woolite was just caught out, and it meant that you couldn't get these early skirmishes going in your favor, which really caused a lot of troubles towards those early dragons, towards the Rift Heralds, and suddenly the objective control is all in favor of Vodafone Giants.
Is it maybe time to play into topside? Maybe have Agresivoo carry?
I mean, it would be an answer. His Camille was 2k ahead. I feel like had you brought that into a fight a little bit earlier on, we could have seen some more life into the Misfits. Like, we talk about this all over and over again, especially when you mention LPL, right? The 1-3-1 always works, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to go back to that Dragon Pit to stop the soul point, to stop the soul, to fight for Elder. And if Vodafone Giants have scaled all the way to the late game and they have a super fed Sylas, they've got the Antonio onto the Ornn that never misses, then you're in big trouble, because they're really good at team fighting.
Let's hope we won't see a stop again today, as we are 1-1 in the best of 5 between Vodafone Giants and Misfits Premier. The last hope for the Superliga shows that they're up for a fight. So let's head it over to a break as we get into, we're ready for game 3.